Arkansas's governor signs bill banning trans students from using the correct bathroom. Arkansas has passed a new law banning transgender students at public schools from using bathrooms that match their gender identity. Republican Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders signed the law, making Arkansas the 4th state to pass this type of anti-trans legislation. The law prohibits trans people from using multi-person restrooms and locker rooms in the state's public and charter schools that do not match the sex they were assigned at birth. Superintendents, principals, and teachers who violate the law face fines of at least $1,000. The law also allows parents to file private lawsuits against schools to enforce the measure. The law goes into effect this summer and requires schools to provide reasonable accommodations to trans students, including single-person restrooms. Opponents of the law say it does not provide funding for schools to provide those accommodations. In her first few months in office, the newly elected governor has already signed multiple anti-LGBTQ+ bills into law. Last month, she signed a bill reclassifying drag performances as adult-oriented entertainment. Earlier this month, she signed a bill similar to Florida's Don't Say Gay law, prohibiting classroom instruction or gender identity and sexual orientation before 5th grade. Just last week, Sanders signed a bill allowing anyone who received gender-affirming care as a minor to sue their doctor for up to 15 years after the patient turns 18 years old. And, you know, at this point, the really red states are just plowing the way for Republicans in moderate states. You remember a few years ago, North Carolina passed their trans bathroom bill, and everybody got in an uproar, rightfully, and they backtracked because, you know, the organization was saying, we won't come here for this, we won't come here for that, we won't bring our conventions, we won't bring Final Fours and things like that. But now, I think they're just counting on us not to care for it to be in a state like Arkansas that does not really host a lot of major events, world or national events, and they're just saying, we're going to do it. And because once one does it, people kind of move on to the next issue.
Well, I have a suggestion for NCAA. Please ban any schools from these states to participate in collegiate events. Yeah. Well, California already, the government of California has already said that they do not allow official travel to any of these states. So why not NCAA? NCAA and college-oriented, college and professional organizations should speak out. If your state government enacts these laws, then the members inside that state is no longer allowed to participate in our activities. That will rile up a lot of college football fans, you know, college basketball fans, college sports fans in general, even professional sports. I mean, I don't think there's anything in Arkansas that qualifies as a professional sports, but, you know.
You haven't been to a Razorbacks game?
No, I
mean, they take it very, very seriously, and you know.
So I think one thing that we really need to see happen right now is that we need to see, we're in such a hyper-partisan era right now. They don't care when people who identify as Democrats or liberals, you know, get up in arms. They feed off of that. They absolutely love it. What we really need is we need allies who are conservative, who are moderate, who are Republicans, who are registered Republicans to stand in the gap for us, to call their legislators, their state legislators, their city council members, their congressional members, and say, look, I'm LGBT. I have LGBT family and friends. I have people that I care about, even if I don't know anyone who's LGBT. I'm just a decent human being who doesn't want to punch down and, you know, prevent someone from being able to pee, you know, during the day, especially a young person. We need people to speak up, to use their voice.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that ship probably has sailed. I mean, the GOP of today is much more conservative and much more radical than the GOP of the past. Those who call themselves fiscally conservative and socially liberal largely have left the party because they can't deal with the Trump BS, and they can't deal with, and now all these people, Ron DeSantis, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, they are all disciples of Trump. They're owning the libs is their way of living. Their way of governing is just, we'll piss off the liberals. That's the only governing mandate.
The way I've heard it is that the cruelty is the point.
Exactly.
Okay. And, you know, we're going to get into another story later, but, you know, they're trying to kill us in some way, shape, or form. They don't want to do it outright, so they're hoping.
They cannot do it outright.
Well, if they have their way, they would like to. But for now, you know, they're hoping I'll call it self-select out. But you know, it kind of saddens me. Arkansas was the state that gave us Bill Clinton. All right, you know, good, bad, or indifferent, yeah, he did give us Don't Ask, Don't Tell, which
is progressive considering the time.
Yes, but they still used it as a witch hunt, but that's another story for another day.
Like Ryan said, I think it's a numbers game. Like that is like whether, you know, if it advantages them, right, to have enough, if enough people are in fact protesting, whether they're allies, whether they're LGBTQ plus, right, like that is, it's not a foregone conclusion that these things are going to pass. And even if they do pass, they record the amount of people who called the representatives, who called their Congress people, who called their legislators. It's really important that we voice our opinion, even from where we sit here today, like we're here in Florida. And I kind of just want to point it to a kind of different part of this story, and that is like, even though we've now seen how many states do this, is this the fourth, right? And some version of this has happened. Like there's different manifestations of these kinds of laws, variations of these laws, no doubt. We saw the example of North Carolina years ago that did in fact, you know, the protests from corporations, not unlike we saw with Disney here in Florida, for a separate bill. But it is really important for us to think about how Florida is also being used as a kind of laboratory for so many of these really anti-trans, anti-gay bills, and they're being replicated in so many different states, and not all of them are red states. So like some of them are purpley, some of them are kind of bluish, and like, you know, bluish, purpley, whatever, right? So it's what's happening. All eyes really need to be all over the country. That is, we can't just have this kind of narrow-minded idea that if it's not happening in my backyard, it's not going to happen to me. That it is really pervasive.
Yeah, and before we move on, I just want to say, Florida is like Arkansas. Quite honestly, Florida is like Arkansas. A deeply conservative, looking for attention governor, and a legislature that provides absolutely no check nor balance to the governor's powers. This weekend, if you're here in South Florida, as we are, West Palm Beach Palm Beach County has their Pride in Lake Worth Beach. The event is both days, Saturday and Sunday. The parade is Sunday at 11 or noon. Down here in, in Fort Lauderdale, Wilton Manors, we're having the March in Heels, where we can march. We're going to try and send a message to Tallahassee that you cannot ignore us, that we must be heard. So it starts at the Pride Center at 11 o'clock on Sunday in Wilton Manors. We're going to march up to 5 Points and then back up Wilton Drive. There's going to be drag queens hosting action stations where you can register to vote, where you can re-register, which you have to do every year now, re-register for mail-in ballots, because that's part of Republican voter suppression. We can't do a lot this year except prepare for next year and try and claw back some of the power away from the people that are taking our civil rights. So that's what you can do just this weekend.
Well said.
Plus News is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Laura are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out Television Network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. Like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure the growth of the entire LGBTQ+ community.